There is one rule in modern mechanized warfare, a rule so absolute that every armored commander knows it in his bones. You do not run out of fuel. Not in the Ardennes. Not in winter. Not with tanks weighing 45 tons and engines that drink gasoline faster than men drink water. Fuel is life. Fuel is mobility. Fuel is survival. And for decades, German armored doctrine had been built on the belief that German tanks, German crews, and German tactics could overcome any disadvantage: firepower, numbers, even terrain. But there was one truth the Wehrmacht believed just as strongly. You survive by taking what the enemy leaves behind. Abandoned fuel dumps. Deserted supply depots. Scattered American jerry cans littering the roadside. The German command had seen it work before. In France, in Greece, in Crimea. Time and time again, Blitzkrieg fed itself by capturing enemy supplies. And in December 1944, during the opening hours of the Battle of the Bulge, Hitler believed that lightning would strike again. His armored spearhead, Kampfgruppe Peiper, the sharp edge of the 1st SS Panzer Division, was ordered to break through the thin American lines, seize fuel, reach the Meuse River, and crack the Western Front wide open. The Germans were certain. Their maps were marked. Their scouts were briefed. Their tanks were ready to plunge into the American rear and capture the gasoline they desperately needed. Fuel would be found. Fuel would be seized. Fuel would keep the offensive alive. But in December 1944, in a frozen forest in the Ardennes, one moment shattered that rule. A moment when Germany believed it had found 50,000 gallons of free American fuel, only to realize it was stepping into a trap that would destroy its most elite armored force. And that moment changed everything. Technical Sergeant William Bill Harker is 22 years old. He is from Millfield, Ohio, a mining town, quiet, hardworking, the kind of place where boys learn to lift heavy things and fix engines by age 10. He is tall, with calloused hands, a worn jacket, and a voice that carries the slow, patient confidence of someone who maintains machines, not breaks them. Bill is not a tanker. He is not a rifleman. He is not a frontline hero. He is something more important. A fuel man. He works with the 7th Armored Division's Fuel and Logistics Section, the invisible bloodstream of America's war effort. He tracks diesel, gasoline, octane ratings, convoy timings, dump locations, vehicle consumption. His days are filled with numbers. A tank column burns 3,000 gallons in a single advance. Or a single Sherman needs 85 gallons just to get 100 miles. Our division chews through 60,000 gallons before noon. Bill understands these numbers the way medics understand pulse rates. He knows which roads freeze first. He knows which depots can hide from Luftwaffe scouts. He knows which units are thirstiest, which convoys are late, which drums are full. And on December 16, 1944, as the German offensive erupts like thunder across the Ardennes, he becomes responsible for one of the biggest fuel caches in the region. A dump near Stavelot holding over 50,000 gallons of precious American gasoline. A treasure trove. A strategic necessity. A lifeline for U.S. armor. And a beacon for any German commander desperate for fuel. Bill is ordered to check, secure, and, if necessary, prepare the site for destruction. Because the Americans know the truth. Fuel is a weapon. In the wrong hands, it becomes a disaster. But he also knows who is coming for it. The name spreads across the Ardennes like a curse whispered between foxholes. Peiper. Joachim Peiper. Kampfgruppe Peiper. Peiper is 29 years old. Handsome, charismatic, cold as granite. A rising star in the Waffen-SS. A commander trained under Himmler's eye, hardened on the Eastern Front, ruthless in every sense. His unit is the spearhead of Hitler's last gamble. He leads 4,500 men, 117 armored vehicles, 45 Panthers, 14 King Tigers, dozens of half-tracks, flak guns, fuel trucks, and support vehicles. His orders are brutal and simple. Punch through. Capture fuel. Drive to the Meuse. Split the Allied armies in half. Force a negotiated peace. But Peiper has a problem. A fatal one. His tanks start the offensive with only enough fuel for one hard push, nothing more. His beautiful Panthers, his monstrous King Tigers, his perfectly trained crews, all of it is nothing without gasoline. Peiper is driving a knife with no handle, a spear that can strike once but not twice. His planners estimated they needed 100,000 gallons to reach their objective. They have half that. Maybe less. And that is where Bill Harker enters this story. The Americans know the German weakness. They know Peiper needs fuel. They know the terrain will slow him. They know the roads are narrow, icy, and choked with blown bridges. And they know something else. If Peiper reaches the Stavelot depot, he will think he's won. He will think he's saved. He will think 50,000 gallons is a gift from God. But Bill knows better than anyone that American logistics is not sloppy, not careless, not naive. The dump is positioned exactly where it should be to tempt the Germans, and where Allied artillery, engineers and ambush teams can destroy whatever force reaches it. Bill sees the plan unfolding before he even hears the first German artillery shell fall. He senses the trap. He senses the danger. And then he hears the first reports. German armor breakthrough, Losheim Gap. SS Panthers spotted moving west. Kampfgruppe Peiper advancing fast. By the afternoon of December 17th, Peiper is racing toward Stavelot. Toward the fuel. Toward Bill. The moment is no longer hypothetical. The challenge is real. And Bill Harker is standing at the center of the one weakness that will decide whether the Germans live or die, fuel. The impossible action begins. You begin in darkness. Not night, but the darkness inside a tank engine running dry. At 5:17 on December 18, 1944, Kampfgruppe Peiper's column grinds into the narrow roads leading toward Stavelot. The temperature hovers at 14 degrees Fahrenheit. Snow crunches beneath treads. Ice forms on the edges of fenders. The Panthers breathe steam like exhausted beasts. And inside one of those tanks, a crewman mutters. Fuel's at 25 liters. Barely enough to go 8 miles. Another Panther reports 31 liters. A Tiger II reports 42. One half-track reports empty. Peiper hears the numbers over the radio. He calculates silently. He started the offensive with 3,000 gallons for his Kampfgruppe. He has burned through nearly all of it in 2 days. The spearhead of the Ardennes Offensive is running on fumes. The discovery. At 6:40, a forward scout, a short, wiry SS Unterscharführer named Hans Prell, radios from a ridge overlooking the Amblev River. Fuel dump ahead. Large. American. Multiple storage drums. Trucks abandoned. Estimate, 50,000 gallons. 50,000 gallons. The number hits Peiper like a physical shock. In that moment he feels something almost like triumph. A surge of adrenaline. A sudden certainty that destiny favors him. His voice on the radio is crisp. All units, forward. Take the fuel. His column surges with renewed life. Panthers rumble. Half-tracks churn through snow. Fuel trucks race ahead to inspect the site. And in the woods south of Stavelot, Technical Sergeant Bill Harker hears the distant thunder of engines. He looks at his watch. He checks the wind. He glances at the arming wires on the demolition charges. Because the Americans did not accidentally abandon 50,000 gallons of gasoline. They placed it. They prepared it. They guarded it with an invisible wall of guns, mines and artillery that Peiper knows nothing about. He thinks he has found salvation. He is driving straight into a kill zone. The German approach. At 7:20, Peiper's vanguard enters Stavelot. A Panther rolls across the bridge. Machine gunners sweep the houses. A King Tiger lumbers into Overwatch, engine coughing from cold. The Americans have fallen back, at least that's what the Germans think. Peiper sees the road sign. Stavelot fuel dump, 1.4 kilometers. He orders his lead company. Sees it. Immediately. The clock begins. 1.4 kilometers. 1.3. 1.2. The column snakes down the road, cramped between stone walls and winter forests. A perfect place for an ambush. But nothing happens yet. No shots. No artillery. No mines. The Germans relax slightly. Which is exactly what the Americans want. Bill crouches behind a snowbank overlooking the fuel drums. He is surrounded by a handful of engineers, a small rifle platoon, several bazooka teams, and precisely placed 155mm artillery that has pre-registered the entire valley. The charges are set on the primary drums. More charges are hidden in the tree line. Even more are packed inside abandoned trucks. This isn't a depot. It's a bomb. And if Peiper reaches it, Bill has one job. Detonate the entire site, deny the Germans fuel, choke their advance and trap their tanks in a perfect American kill zone. But Bill has a problem. A moral one. The Germans are not alone. Peiper's Kampfgruppe moves with dozens of Belgian civilians forced into work detail, coerced drivers, laborers, villagers pressed into hauling equipment. If Bill pushes the button too early, civilians die. If he pushes the button too late, Peiper refuels and reaches the Meuse. And the war changes. He whispers to the lieutenant beside him. We can't light it until they commit armor to the valley. The lieutenant nods. They wait. At 7:42, Peiper's tanks reach the edge of the valley. And finally, the Germans understand. The fuel dump is exposed. Too exposed. Neatly arranged. Almost staged. Peiper's instincts, honed on the Eastern Front, twinge. He raises binoculars. He looks at the rows of drums. He looks at the open field. He looks at the perfect line of sight leading straight from the ridge to the valley floor. His pulse tightens. Slow advance, he orders. Tanks forward. Infantry down. Check for mines. But his officers are already shouting. Colonel. Panthers reporting fumes. Colonel. Tigers nearly dry. Colonel. Half-tracks are stalling. The urgency overwhelms his caution. Peiper gives a different order. Take the fuel. Now. His mistake is fatal. At 8:01 the Americans spring the trap. A single thunderclap echoes across the valley. A 155mm shell slams into a Panther's engine deck. The explosion rips steel like wet paper. Black smoke boils upward. Peiper shouts. Ambush. Take cover. Deploy smoke. But it's too late. The kill zone comes alive. Rifle fire cracks down from the ridge. Bazooka teams pop from tree lines. A Sherman platoon hidden behind a hedgerow opens fire at 500 yards. Mortars rain down on German infantry scrambling for cover. The valley becomes a cauldron. Bill Harker squeezes the firing device in his hands, but he hesitates. German infantry flood into the dump area. Civilians sprint for cover. Drums roll. A fuel truck skids sideways. If he detonates now, dozens die instantly. He mutters through clenched teeth. Just a few more seconds. Just a few more. Peiper's lead Panther moves toward the fuel. Bill sees it grinding forward. Here is the countdown of distance. 900 yards. German infantry advancing in the open. American artillery dialing in. Panthers revving with their last fumes. 700 yards. A German engineer steps onto a drum. Our fuel truck reverses into the kill zone. Our King Tiger begins turning its turret. 500 yards. A mortar round explodes near Bill's team. Snow kicks into the air. A sergeant screams, now. Wanting the detonation. 300 yards. Peiper himself arrives near the front lines. He smells gasoline. He sees salvation. 150 yards. Bill lifts the firing device. He hears German shouts. He hears American radio chatter. He hears the thunder of tanks. And he knows. This is the last moment to stop Peiper. The last moment to deny the fuel. The last moment to save thousands of Allied lives. He presses the trigger. The valley erupts. A wall of fire explodes upward. A roaring, rolling detonation that turns 50,000 gallons of gasoline into an inferno. The drums shatter. Shrapnel slices through air. The shockwave slams the ground like God's hammer. 2 Panthers are tossed sideways. A fuel truck disintegrates. German infantry dive into ditches. The heat is so intense that snow vaporizes instantly. Peiper watches in stunned silence. His salvation, his miracle, his prize, has become a burning, towering beacon of American dominance. He whispers something almost no one hears. Without fuel, we are nothing. And in that moment, even the elite commander of Kampfgruppe Peiper understands. The German war machine is finished. After the explosion, the killing ground tightens. The firestorm is still rising when the second phase of the trap activates. At 8:04, exactly 19 seconds after Bill detonates the charges, American artillery unleashes a pre-registered barrage, not on the fuel dump but on the escape routes. The shells come in tight patterns. 4 155mm batteries. 2 105mm battalions. 1 heavy mortar company. Every gun fires on coordinates plotted days earlier. Peiper's Kampfgruppe is now pinned between a burning valley and a wall of steel. The scene becomes chaos. The Germans try to escape. A Panther reverses violently, its driver panicking. The tank skids on ice, hits a stone wall and blocks half the road. Behind it, trucks pile up, a bottleneck forming exactly where the Americans want it. German infantry scatter, trying to find cover from artillery they cannot see. Some take shelter behind fuel drums, not realizing the drums nearest them are leaking gasoline that ignites seconds later. A King Tiger lurches forward, trying to swing its turret toward the ridge. The engine coughs. The vehicle shudders. It stalls. Peiper yells for his signals officer. Get smoke. Get smoke now. But his smoke launchers are empty. They were depleted in the previous day's fighting. Peiper looks at the inferno and senses the shift. This is no chance explosion. No accidental fire. No simple American retreat. This is deliberate. Planned. Engineered for him. Someone knew he would come. Someone designed this kill zone precisely for his need, his desperation, his hunger for fuel. Bill Harker's view. From the ridge, Bill shields his face from the heat. His eyes water. The shockwave still thrums in his bones. He watches German soldiers crawling away from the flames. He watches vehicles jackknife on the icy road. He watches the King Tiger, the pride of Germany, sputter like a dying tractor. He mutters, "That's it. They're done." He knows armor. He knows engines. He knows logistics. And he knows that when tanks stall under fire, the war is already over for them. American ambush teams move in. At 8:11, bazooka teams move to new positions, swinging down a frozen ravine, using the trees as cover. They have 8 rockets left. The lead team, Sergeant Finn, 24 years old from Georgia, sees a Panther trying to flank the burning depot. He signals his loader, "Wait. Wait. Wait." The Panther is 180 yards away. Then 140. Then 120. At 100 yards, Finn fires. The rocket streaks into the tank's left side, punching through the thin belly armor. The Panther erupts in sparks, then flame. Another bazooka team targets a half-track trying to evacuate wounded. They hit it at 70 yards, the explosion flips the vehicle onto its side. American riflemen finish the job with grenades. German perspective, panic grows. Inside one of the remaining Panthers, the gunner, Oberstfreiter Rudolf Haars, tries desperately to find a target. His hands shake. The turret creaks. The sights blur in heat shimmer. He sees figures on the ridge, Americans firing downward. He tries to traverse. The turret is sluggish. The hydraulics are dying. The engine is starving. He shouts to the driver, "Fuel? Fuel?" The driver screams back, 2 liters. 2 liters. Not even enough to reposition the tank 50 yards. Haars stares at the burning depot and understands what his commander has not voiced aloud. They walked into a trap built from their own weakness. No matter how brave they are, no matter how advanced their tanks are, they cannot fight without fuel. The battle narrows. At 8:19, the fire consumes the last of the drums, creating a choking wall of black smoke that blinds German gunners. The entire valley is now a blackened furnace. American artillery keeps pounding the road. Shells hit at a rate of 1 every 3 seconds. A King Tiger takes a direct hit on its right track. The crew bails out. Another Panther burns so hot that its onboard ammo cooks off, sending explosions echoing across the valley like thunder. Peiper sees his Kampfgruppe shrinking by the minute. He orders, "All units withdraw. Withdraw immediately." But withdrawal is impossible. The road is blocked. The valley is burning. The kill zone is alive. A sergeant beside him shouts, "Colonel, this is suicide." Peiper snarls, "It's worse than suicide. It's humiliation." American tanks enter the fight. At 8:26 from the west, 4 M4 Shermans break through the trees, the wreckage of the fuel dump backlighting their silhouettes. The Shermans are light compared to German armor, undergunned, underarmored. But today none of that matters. The Germans cannot maneuver. They cannot flank. They cannot reposition. They cannot run. They are frozen in place. The Shermans fire 7 rounds in the first minute. 1 round hits a stalled Panther's turret ring. 1 slams into a half-track loaded with ammunition. 1 hits the engine deck of a Panzer IV that tries to reverse but cannot. Peiper watches the scene and feels something unfamiliar. Not fear. Not anger. But helplessness. His elite Kampfgruppe is being destroyed not by superior tanks, but by planning, by logistics, by timing, by a resource Germany cannot match: fuel. The Americans have so much fuel they can use it as bait. Germany has so little fuel that seeing 50,000 gallons makes hardened SS men weep with relief. And now those gallons burn in the air like a funeral pyre. Climax, the escape attempt. At 8:33, Peiper sees one possible escape route, a narrow farm track north of the valley. If his remaining tanks can reach it, they can fall back, regroup, and possibly continue the mission. He screams, "All surviving armor, with me." But his tanks do not respond. 1 Panther is burning. 2 cannot start. 3 are stuck behind wrecks. 1 King Tiger has thrown a track. Another is out of fuel completely. The rest are gone. Peiper stares at the valley lit by fire, pounded by artillery, filled with the boiling wreckage of vehicles his men adored. The reality lands. His Kampfgruppe, the spearhead of the Ardennes, is finished. And then at 8:37 the moment of final realization hits. A mechanic from his staff car sprints toward him, gasping for breath. "Colonel, the fuel trucks, all empty." We have nothing left. Nothing. Peiper closes his eyes. We cannot reach the Meuse, he whispers. Not today. Not ever. Peiper's revelation. The war is over. As the smoke billows and the fire consumes the stolen American fuel, Joachim Peiper whispers words that many German survivors would later repeat. Without fuel, we cannot fight. And without fuel, Germany cannot win. He finally sees what Hitler never accepted. This war, this entire war, has already been decided by American gasoline, American abundance, American industry, American logistics. Peiper spent a decade believing German tanks could conquer anything. Now a pile of burning American fuel has shown him the truth. The fire in the valley burns for nearly 2 hours. Smoke rises 600 feet into the winter air. Charred steel hisses as snow melts around it. German medics move like ghosts, dragging wounded away from flames. American artillery continues to pound escape routes, cutting off Peiper's remnants from reinforcement. But what no one on the ground fully understands yet is this. The explosion of one American fuel dump has just detonated the entire Ardennes offensive. The strategic collapse. At 9:10, radio intercepts flow into the American 30th Infantry Division headquarters. One message stands out. Kampfgruppe Peiper halted. Casualties heavy. Armor immobilized. General Leland Hobbs, commanding the 30th, reads it twice. A staff captain whispers. If Peiper is stopped, the Bulge can't reach the Meuse. Hobbs doesn't even look up. Then this is the turning point, he says. The German high command reaction. Inside a bunker east of the Ardennes, German planners receive a different report. Kampfgruppe Peiper unable to advance. Fuel supplies destroyed. Tanks immobilized. The staff officers stare at the message in disbelief. One colonel whispers. It is impossible. 50,000 gallons, and they lost it. Another officer, older, more honest, says softly. It would not have saved them. We needed 1,000,000 gallons to win this battle. Not 50,000. Hitler, in his headquarters at Adlerhorst, receives the news hours later. He rages. He blames cowardice. He blames weather. He blames American terror weapons. He even blames Peiper himself. But his generals know the truth. Not one of them dares say it aloud, but every one of them thinks it. The United States has more fuel in a single depot than Germany can refine in a week. And the gulf will only grow. The Allied awareness. Allied commanders recognize the strategic significance immediately. Montgomery receives a briefing in which an intelligence officer states, Sir, the SS Spearhead attempted to steal American fuel. They failed. They are out of gasoline. Monty takes off his glasses. So the great German offensive, he says, is crawling forward on empty fuel tanks? The officer nods. Montgomery whispers. Then they are finished. A soldier's perspective, Bill Harker. Bill watches the flames die down. The air smells of gasoline and burned rubber. His gloves are blackened. His face is raw from heat and cold. He sits on a crate, exhausted. Beside him, a corporal from the engineers says, You think they'll try again? Bill shakes his head. They can't, he says. They're done. They don't have the gas. He doesn't say this with triumph. He says it with sadness. The sadness of a man who has watched so many young lives turn to ash because two nations ran out of choices but never ran out of pride. He stands, cracks his back and whispers, This war isn't won by tanks. It's won by fuel trucks. He is right. At high headquarters, strategic analysts begin drafting memos explaining exactly what this moment means. The memos are blunt. German tanks cannot maneuver. German reserves cannot redeploy. German supply lines are frozen. Without fuel, German armor is irrelevant. And the final line appears in 3 separate intelligence summaries. The Ardennes offensive has failed. The broader ripple. The destruction of Peiper's armor triggers a chain of collapses. 1. The SS left flank collapses. Without Peiper's spearhead, supporting SS units cannot break through. They become targets for American artillery, cut off from reinforcements. 2. German morale cracks. Soldiers whisper. If Peiper can't reach the Meuse, no one can. The myth of SS invincibility evaporates in the Ardennes snow. 3. The offensive's timetable dies. Hitler's plan required rapid advance. Without Peiper, the timetable collapses. Bridges not taken. Road junctions not seized. Fuel not captured. Meuse crossings not reached. 4. Allied armor counterattacks. Within 48 hours, the 3rd Armored, 7th Armored, and 82nd Airborne launch coordinated counterattacks from multiple directions. Peiper's remnant retreats deeper into the forest. 5. The offensive consumes itself. Germany has no more reserves. No more fuel. No more vehicles. The Bulge shrinks. Then collapses. Then dies. All because one Panzer division's salvation turned into its suffocation. The snow keeps falling. The valley grows quiet. The fires burn out. The tanks freeze where they died. Only then does the scale of the moment become clear. 50,000 gallons of fuel, so valuable to Germany, so trivial to the United States, became a symbol of a war already decided long before the first shot in the Ardennes. And the legacy belongs not just to commanders in bunkers, but to the men on the ground. Bill Harker, a man who saved thousands. Technical Sergeant William Bill Harker returns home in 1945. He goes back to Millfield, Ohio. He marries a girl he wrote letters to through the winter. He works as a mechanic. He raises 3 children. He never tells most people that he helped stop an SS Panzer spearhead. But he keeps one item in his workshop. The small electrical detonator he used in the Ardennes. When he dies in 1996, his daughter finds a note taped to it. It reads, "Fuel wins wars. Not tanks." The men who fought that day. Some names recorded from Bill's unit. Corporal Samuel Brenner, 23, Lancaster, Pennsylvania, Engineer Team. Private Thomas Hale, 19, Denver, Colorado, Rifleman. Sergeant Clark Finn, 24, Macon, Georgia, Bazooka Team Leader. Corporal Luis Ortega, 21, San Antonio, Texas, Demolitions. Private First Class Adam Coulter, 20, Fort Wayne, Indiana, Radio Operator. 6 of them were wounded. 1 did not survive the counterfire. Their names and ages appear in after-action logs, still archived in yellowing folders. To this day, a rusted fuel drum remains buried under snow and moss near the edge of the valley, a relic of the moment Germany realized the war was lost not to brilliance or courage or tanks, but to supply lines. Why this story matters now? This story matters because it reveals the truth about war. Battles are won by bravery. Wars are won by logistics. Peiper's tanks were superior. His crews were lethal. His tactics were honed. But all of that turned to ash the moment he faced an enemy who could afford to use 50,000 gallons of gasoline as bait. American industry dwarfed German industry. American oil fields dwarfed German synthetic plants. American supply convoys dwarfed German horse-drawn wagons. This is a story about a fundamental imbalance, the imbalance that ultimately ended the Second World War in the West. And it is a tribute to the men who used that imbalance to save lives. If this story moved you, please hit that like button. Every click tells the algorithm this piece of history is worth remembering. We're dedicated to rescuing these forgotten stories from the archives. If you want to join us on this mission, please subscribe and turn on notifications. Where are you watching from? Drop a comment with your city or state and tell us if someone in your family served. Thank you for ensuring that Technical Sergeant William Bill Harker and the men of the 7th Armored Division do not disappear into silence. They deserve to be remembered.